Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. And the other day I was playing chess, as I do, and I was white in this position, and here I played e5. Seems a very reasonable move. This piece can't move because it's pinned to the queen, and I'm just going to take it with the pawn next move. And in this position, my opponent resigned, which I was very confused at, right? Because he can actually just play h6, and he's completely fine in this position. Okay, sure, I can take, but he can now take my bishop. And, I mean, even if I take this pawn, he just takes with the king, and any, attacks with the queen just don't really work, because now he's actually got this open file, and now I'm the one being attacked in this position. So I was quite surprised, actually, when my opponent resigned, but I understood it. I've got a few students, and one of the things they always say is, what do I do when I'm losing? Because often people just get into their head and just say, oh, I'm losing, I'm lost, and just resign, when in actuality it's quite easy to hold on in some of these positions. So that's where the idea of this video came in, and hopefully I can convince you guys that not to resign in positions that are completely fine. That rhymed, so you know it's true. Anyway, so the most important thing is the mindset. So up here, the first thing I've got is everyone makes mistakes. I'm actually reading, hang on, let me get it. I'm actually reading Bobby Fischer's My 60 Memorable Games, and very famously, he lost the first game of his World Championship match against Boris Spassky because he just made literally a one move blunder. It was a complete draw, and then he just blundered his bishop. Yeah, even Bobby Fischer makes mistakes. Even Magnus Carlsen makes mistakes. So your opponent will make mistakes, right? Someone who is also better than your opponent, including Bobby Fischer, Emanuel Lasker. I believe he still holds the world record for the longest time as world champion. He was world champion, I believe, for 27 years. And a famous quote that he's got is, the hardest game to win is a one game. So surely that means the easiest game to not lose is a lost game, right? If you flip it on its head. Anyway, but yeah, so this is what your opponent is thinking. The hardest game to win is a one game. So you need to get into their head, because they're going to be pooing themselves. Yeah. Also, don't take computer evaluation as gospel. You're already losing. To be honest, you shouldn't take computer evaluation as gospel anyway, but especially in losing positions, because the resources that you're going to be using aren't going to be computer checked. They're not going to be 100%, especially at low elo, because every move isn't going to be computer eval safe, essentially. And also, even if you're down two pieces, if you're down two knights, it's theoretically impossible to checkmate a king with just two knights and a king. Yeah, so if worst case, you can trade everything off and you've got a completely drawn endgame, so you should be fine, right? So if you're two knights down, don't just immediately resign, because you can still play. There's still juice in the position. Yeah, and so with that, I will go on to some of the actual tactics that I've got. Now, first, I've got a game from a friend of mine. This isn't a student, this is a friend of mine. And, okay, his opening was very shocking. And deservedly so, he gets himself into a bit of a pickle here. As my note here says, bro's getting cooked. This is not good at all. So, yeah. So he has to run his king. And, I mean, his opponent makes a few mistakes here. First of all, these pawn moves, okay, he's trying to get his bishop in. But I think that's just a bit too slow here. And also, this just blocks in the rook, really. But nevertheless, he runs his king, which is this one we'll get into in a moment. And then, yeah, his opponent just blunders, right? So essentially, you just need to stay in the game, especially at low elo. My friend is, I think he's around 1,000 elo. Just keep in the game until your opponent does something stupid. You know, maybe they get tunnel visioned on the king. And just drop a piece. Okay, this tactic, wow, but you can just block that, and there's no actual way to, keep going. Something like this, okay, great. what are you going to do? Like, you've just lost a piece. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's still juice in the position. Maybe they can start pushing this pawn, try and open up the center, blah, 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 etc. But you get what I'm trying to say. This position isn't dead lost like it was over here, right? Yeah, over here, this is just not great at all. But then, you know, all of a sudden, after running the king away and just staying in the game for a few moves, your opponent makes a mistake. Yeah, so in the game, my friend, decides to come here instead of blocking in this position. But you know, that's fine, because after here, the opponent makes another big mistake after a few moves, which is this. And I mean, pause the video, look for a tactic in this position. But yeah, this check here opens up a discovery on the queen, bam, and all of a sudden you're up 6 points of material here. If you see this part of the screen, you're up 6 points of material all of a sudden. And I mean, well, they went on to lose more pieces, and it's just a standard low elo game. But my friend ended up winning this game eventually after a few more moves. So essentially, stay in the game and look for tactics. Your opponent isn't Magnus Carlsen, and even if they were, Magnus Carlsen still makes mistakes. So that's the main point there. On to the next point is activate your pieces. I was recently in a tournament in Croatia, and one of my friends was black in this position. And after the game, he's like, "I don't know what happened. I was a piece up." Like, bro, look at your opponent's pieces, right? They're especially with these pawns, they're in your camp. They're very active. So in this position, his opponent played this, and scared about these pawns. My friend just defends it, when in reality he needs to worry about, you know, his back two ranks, because he can't challenge the rooks here, because I mean, this would be embarrassing. This is checkmate. So these two rooks are just doomed on this back rank. And just coming here, I mean, now this is just very, very bad. This wasn't what happened in the game, actually. I think he managed to cling on for a draw, even though he was a piece up. But yeah, this is just a continuation. All of a sudden, even though he is an entire rook up, well, black is an entire rook up, white has the checkmate, because their pieces are just better placed. This rook might as well not be on the board. This queen might as well not be on the board. None of his pieces are coordinated, whereas white's pieces, all three of them, all two of them, this pawn is better than these pieces already. So yeah, even if you're losing, look for activity. You know, double your rooks up, like white did here. Look to control key squares, like d8 is here, because now black can't move any of their rook, well, any of their pieces at all, let alone the rooks, to the d file. And also, don't be afraid to play some risky moves, like allowing this exchange sacrifice, because again, how are you gonna defend this weak pawn? The next resource you have is to just start pushing your pawns, right? At the moment, black, they're a rook down for a couple pawns. They have no threats on the board, right? They've got nothing, really. But I mean, after, say, for example, takes here, and let's say white's trying to get their king in the game, all of a sudden, these pawns start marching up the board, and yeah, who's stopping these pawns? Because it's all of a sudden getting very scary now, right? Yeah, I don't know what white even does, but this position is very, very good for black now. All of a sudden, just because they started pushing these pawns, I don't know, let's say white plays just a random move like this. Well, all of a sudden, these pawns are coming in. Say they come back here to prevent this push. Well, I mean, actually, that just wins straight up. And now that's a queen. And yeah, bam. All of a sudden, from being a rook down to a queen up in the space of just, what's that, 9 moves? Yeah, exactly. Basically, just create your own threats, and pushing pawns is a very good way to create your own threats. Activate your pieces is a very good way to create your own threats as well. And I've just realised that I accidentally skipped this one. So, onto this one, which is another one of activate your pieces. don't be afraid to sacrifice. So before, where we had the exchange sack here, this exchange sack, where we came queen here and sacked the exchange. Here, I mean, actually, this game is a game that I played. Here, yeah, so I'm a pawn down, and here I open up the rooks, right? Because I don't want to trade rooks like this, because, I mean, my opponent can just play a waiting move, and, like, my opponent doesn't have to take. Whereas this forces the matter, and after this exchange, which happened in the game, right, I've sacrificed a pawn, but now my rook is a very, very active piece, and my opponent just starts playing very, very passively and allows me to get these pawns rolling, and after a few moves, I end up pushing the pawn down the board, and, I mean, attacking these pawns as well, but I end up not even going for these pawns, and just come here, and, I mean, my opponent played on for a few more moves, but, yeah, this is just not, yeah, this is a win. Basically, I went on to win the game, because, yeah, basically, I was losing. This position is probably slightly worse. Yeah, okay, great, slightly worse. But, I mean, my opponent just didn't know how to handle the pressure and started playing bad moves. I mean, already it's pretty equal. Yeah, so basically, create threats, sacrifice, well, don't be afraid to sacrifice, I should say, for activity, and make threats, because your opponent will poo their pants. Now, run the king. I showed you a little bit of this before when Black had was trying to defend. They were running their king this way, but now White is trying to defend. Now Black here doesn't really have much of a plan. They just start making some random checks. Okay, cool. Basically, we're going to try and run our king up this way, up the board. Black starts pushing the pawns because, well, they've got these extra pawns. Why shouldn't they push them? And all of a sudden, this looks very, very scary. This king is a very active piece. And if Black just pushes the pawn, which, you know, they get tunnel vision. It's very common people at low elo just get tunnel vision and start pushing their pawns. Well, they've just blundered checkmate. And this is checkmate. And despite being 9 points of material up, Black is the one that is losing the game, that has lost the game. In this position, it is quite safe to say that Black is destroying White. They have this extra rook here, and these pawns aren't going anywhere. You can't just push these pawns because they will get taken. So this chapter up here is a little bit useless. Basically, White has nothing in this situation. They might as well resign, but they're not going to because they watched this video. And after, you know, Black doesn't really have a clue what they're doing, maybe, I don't know. A better idea is just to come here and just take this pawn and then just take this pawn and then just win the game, really. But I mean, let's say Black's got their ideas mixed up a little bit, and after here and here, White comes here, and White puts their hand out and says, thank you very much, that's a draw now, because this position is stalemate. White doesn't have a legal move. This king takes away this square, this pawn takes away this square, and this rook takes away this square, and none of these pawns can move either because they've all got something in front of them. So, yeah, embarrassing one for Black in this situation. And just shows you, even when you're a whole rook down in a completely lost endgame, let's go back to this position. Yeah, force mate in 18, bam. Bet you didn't see that. But instead of that, this just complete nightmare for Black. And White, you know, just wins. Well, not wins, but they might as well have won because they were getting destroyed and they came away with half a point. So, yeah, always be on the lookout for stuff like this, especially when you're losing, and especially when your pawns don't have any squares to move. Or if you don't have any pawns at all. Try and put your king in a very strange place that it might be hidden from checks and your opponent might just stalemate you. So, yeah, try and hide your king as well. Another stalemate trick, oh, that should not be on. Another stalemate trick is this one where Black is going this way, so they've got a pawn on the 7th, but White has a queen. And this is a very common stalemate trick where, you know, after a few checks, because that's the only way really to make progress. Yeah, black comes here in the corner, and after this check and here, it looks like this is forced, where black has to go behind the pawn, and then white can slowly bring their king in, and maybe try and get a checkmate here. But instead of that, white goes to the corner, and it may just look like you can take this pawn, when in actuality this is stalemate. This king has no squares to move, and yeah, it's a draw. This position is a known draw, simply because of this trick. As you can see, the evaluation is 0. Yeah, so even though you're a whole queen down, the threat of this pawn combined with this stalemate trick allows black to hold on for the draw in this position. Now, the final tactic that I will give to you, I've got you 10 things to do when you are losing. The final one is a defensive fortress. Here, 2 pieces for the queen. This doesn't look very good for white, because black has an extra queen for 2 pieces. Normally this would be completely lost, but in this situation, you can construct what is called a fortress, right? So here, I mean, this is check, so I mean, unless you want to lose the queen, black moves the king away, and after this check, I mean, you can't take again because that would just be an immediate draw. All of a sudden, all of these squares here are taken. For example, these 2 are taken, let's give that a red arrow, by the knight, and then these ones are taken by the bishop. So this king can never reach this king. The white king here has, hang on, let's get another colour. Yeah, the white king has 3 squares to hop between, and will never be put in Zugzwang, as we call it. For example, if, I don't know, we come here, white comes here, here, black has nothing to do. Maybe they try and come in a bit closer with their king. But, I mean, we can just wait here. We can just make this waiting move with our bishop. And after something like this, again, this is completely fine. They can't take here because we just take back the bishop. And black has nothing. If they try to come here to switch diagonals, again, there's nothing. This king can never enter. As long as we just keep this knight protected, we are completely fine in this situation. And there's actually a few ways you can make a fortress in the endgame. They're very, very common. And you just need to look out for them. Even when you're in this position, your opponent's got a queen and you don't, they're still very, very common, and they are a very, very good defensive resource to hold on for the draw. Fantastic. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it educational, etc. I just wanted to give a quick plug to my new one-to-one coaching program. Basically, whatever ELO you are, I will help you increase your ELO, help you beat your friends, help you master the art of chess, and I will walk you through, the openings, the middle games, the tactics, the end games, and I will give you personalized one-to-one lessons, all that good stuff to make sure you achieve your goals in chess. So check out the top link in the description if that's what you're looking for, and thank you for watching again. Goodbye. Catch you in the next one. Mwah.